Hey guys, Barrett here. Welcome back to my video. It's paddle review time. I know it's been a while since I've done a paddle review, but today it's going to be a little bit different. As you can see, I have a whole stack of paddles back there. I've had my eye on these paddles for a while, and finally I've had the chance to try them out. So, without further ado, let's get into it. The paddles in question here are from Temper or TMPR. You've probably seen them around. They're interesting paddles, and I think there's a lot of value here that can really help people out, especially in certain areas. And we're going to get into that, but I've got a sweet coupon code for you. You can get $10 off a paddle if you use KINCH10, K-I-N-C-H 10, first 5 letters of my last name, and I get a little commission in return. So feel free to use that coupon if you end up buying a paddle. Now, let's get into the actual paddles here. So I've got 5 paddles that I want to show you here. Hopefully I can get through this in time. But yeah, I got these paddles a while back, actually back in I think it was March or so, and it's early June now. And I've gotten a lot of time playing with them. You know, you guys, when I go out to do my videos, you guys see me with my prints, but before and after, if I'm warming up or if I'm just we're just thinking around, having a little bit of fun, I'm using paddles like these that I get from manufacturers to test them out and so on. So first, let's categorize them because that's really going to help. When you have all these different brand names and names of paddles, it can get really confusing really fast. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to separate these out by the Luxe Edition, which is the LX here. Okay, see the LX right there. And the GXT, which is just this paddle. Now keep in mind, I don't have all of their paddles on hand. They have some power paddles that have been released recently. I didn't get my hands on those, maybe one day, but these are the paddles that I'm working with here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start from aggressive to defensive. So let's begin there. There are essentially 3 main Luxe paddles here, okay? You've got the Tantrum Luxe or LX, the Oculus, and you've got the Ascend. You also have the Rave here, which is basically just like the elongated Selkirk Omni style, essentially. The thing to understand about all these paddles is that they are essentially all the exact same thing. Even though they look different, even though the type is different on the face for a couple of them, they're essentially the same thing. Polymer honeycomb, fiberglass face. The face is nice and textured, but what makes the really big difference with these paddles is the shape. The shape is a really big deal. If you've watched some of my paddle guides, the number 1 or number 2 thing that I talk about in terms of how to find a good paddle for you has to do with the actual shape of the thing itself. So let's start with the most aggressive paddle, which is the Ascend here. Now, as you can see, let's get a little bit of a close-up here. You can already see the teardrop rounded out shape. Kind of reminds you of my Prince paddle with the rounded edges. That is the theme with all of these paddles. They have this teardrop shape. Handle is nice and long, but the sweet spot is quite narrow. You only get 7.5 inches of width. Now your standard paddle is about 8 inches of width. That's pretty standard. So you're losing a 1/4 inch on each side. Now that may not seem like a lot, but when you have a paddle like this where the neck is really pushed up and you have tons of handle length here, this is at least 5 inches, okay? That shortens the sweet spot going up and in from the sides, and it makes things very precise. But with that smaller sweet spot, you gain a ton of attack, pop, and whip on the ball. And considering with this kind of paddle, you should be holding the handle down at the very bottom. But considering that your handle is far away from the center of gravity of the paddle, you can really attack the ball. And I was doing these roll shots, these kind of 4-shot rolls over the net. And although I would hit them every now and then, once I got used to it, man, you can really attack the ball. And keep in mind, these paddles aren't really terribly expensive. They're not way up there. They're pretty standard price paddles. So it's really good for people who want a lot of whip and want a lot of attack on the ball. But if you're a beginner, you're just getting started, no way. No way. The sweet spot is quite small, but when you do make contact with the ball, it's something else. Now going down in aggressiveness here, you've got the Oculus Lux. Now this is basically the same thing as the Ascend Lux, but it's a little bit more rounded and you have a bit more of that sweet spot on the side. It's been extended out a little bit. It's pretty standard in terms of width, 8.1 around-ish on the width. It's a little bit shorter than the Ascend, so you're not going to get that reach, and your hand is much closer to the center of the paddle, so you won't get as much of that attack on there. And so therefore, the Oculus is a little bit more handle heavy, but you do get more of that sweet spot. If you were like a racquetball player or you were a ping pong player, this is a really nice paddle to start out with. It's got that, I love the rounded shape. Let me know in the comments, do you guys like the rounded shape paddles? I would love to hear what you think, but you can see how nice and rounded that is. It felt great when I was dinking with it, when I was hitting with it. It's more of a dinking paddle though than the Ascend. The Ascend is like you're killing the ball all the time, whereas the Oculus here, yeah, you can hit it pretty hard, but because of the fact that it's a little bit more compressed down, you're not really going to get that kind of whip. So again, is it a beginner's paddle? I think it's okay. I mean, 8.1 width is pretty good, but it's still a little bit more elongated, but that sweet spot is nice and rounded out, and it just feels a little bit more consistent to me. Now this next paddle is the Tantrum Lux here, which is actually quite similar to the Ascend Lux. Now don't get the colors confused, and I know the type is different. Not sure why. There may be something I'm missing, but I doubt it. It's kind of a little bit of a weird design choice, but I may be missing something here. Let me show you something though. When you compare these two paddles, I do this a lot in my videos to kind of show people. You see how you can see, if you line it up here, you see how you can see the Tantrum Lux from behind? You see how it sticks out here like this? What that shows you is that the Ascend, okay, the Ascend paddle has been shoved up, right? So the Tantrum is basically the Ascend, but it gives you more room on the bottom here. So again, you don't get that kind of whip that you would get with a paddle like this, where all of the weight is further up the paddle, but you still get a nice sort of wide paddle. It's kind of like the Invicta from Selkirk, but you also still get the length and you still get the nice handle. Still can put two hands on there. It's a little tight, right? But still a nice paddle. If you're a fan of elongated paddles that still have a good handle, so it doesn't have that like tiny short handle, could be a really good paddle to go with. Now the last paddle in the Lux series is the Rave here. Standard elongated paddle. Personally, I'm just not a fan of these kinds of paddles, but you know who you are if you like these kinds of things. It's like the Omni, right? It's got the shorter handle on the end, but it is quite long. It's quite handle heavy. I can feel all the weight down here. There's really not much else to say about this one. Now, here's where we get into the special one. The Tantrum GXT. This is different than the other ones. The big difference between this one and the others is that instead of a fiberglass face, you have a graphite face. The face is smooth. It's not textured, right? You can hear the difference, right? It's significantly smoother. That doesn't necessarily affect the spin though. That's not really what's going on here. The Tantrum GXT is very similar to the Tantrum LX here. Still an elongated paddle, but the graphite face really makes the difference, and also it's a little bit less expensive than the others, which is nice. But it is my favorite paddle by far. This paddle is really unique because you still get the elongated effect of it being longer than most other paddles, but you still get that width as well. There's a unique balance to it that I think strikes perfectly almost. And I felt like I was able to get really good drives on the ball. I was able to get nice rolls on the ball. The dinking was really good. The smooth face did mess me up after a while, and that was a thing that I just I just kind of have to get used to it. I guess it's just a texture thing. I don't know. That's just personal. But it's a really good paddle. I mean, it's got a little bit of that teardrop shape. The neck is pushed up just slightly to give you that weight here from your hand to the center of gravity of the paddle. Overall, just a really nice paddle. The sweet spot, though, is what is really nice about it, and it reminds me of the PaddleTech Tempest Wave, the older ones. You've probably seen them on my video. If you've been watching for a couple of years, that's the paddle I used to use, and it has that solid graphite-y feel to it. Like, do you know what I mean? You know what I mean when you pick up someone's paddle and you're just bouncing the ball on the face, and you feel that soft, kind of juicy feel, right? That is what it feels like, but you can still absolutely smack the ball. You can feel the force, you can feel the attack, and again, it's a little bit less expensive than the others. Overall, how do I feel about these paddles? From an objective standpoint here, just kind of top to bottom here, the paddles are good. They're just good. They're not bad at all in any way, but they're not like extraordinarily amazing either. I mean, I think they're just good paddles. They're not $200, I'll tell you that. I think I'm a bit iffy about putting the price on here because it could change in the future. I hope you understand. All the links are down below. But they're just good paddles. In terms of durability, everything is fine. I didn't notice any issues with the face. There was no chipping on the face at all. You have your normal wear and tear with the edge guard and stuff like that. One thing that is unique, though, is that when you order the paddle, you can either get the octagon handle, sorry, it's out of focus, like that, or you can get your standard beveled shape, like my Prince here. My Prince has a flat edge here, and then it kind of wraps around here. So it's got like 4 sides, basically. Or you can get the octagon shape here, like I mentioned. It's kind of neat. If you're a tennis player, right, and you're using these paddles, you may be used to that octagon shape, so you have that option in case you'd like it. Now, who is going to choose these kinds of paddles? Most of the times, these are not beginner paddles. However, if you're a beginner, maybe you're a little bit athletic, or you've got that hand-eye coordination already, Tantrum GXT is a great pick. In fact, when I one day get around to updating my recommended gear list on my website, this will be on there. It will be on there because I think it is a great, well-rounded, affordable paddle that gives you a lot of bang for your buck. It's value. It's just pure value. However, when it comes to something like the Ascend LX here, this is for a good pickleball player. You're a 4.0, probably 4.5 player. You've got great hand-eye coordination. You've been playing racket sports for a while. You like to roll the ball. You like to drive the ball. And in particular, you probably like to play singles every now and then too. But that's the cool thing though, because you're basically working down the tiers. So if this is too much for you, then you can go to the Oculus. And even if that's too much for you, then you can go down to the Tantrum. You see how that works. You've got a great spectrum here to work with. And I think that's really cool about these paddles. Are they like the kind of paddle that you write home about? Is it a paddle that, I would do a podcast on? No, but does it have to be? No, they're just good. They're just good paddles. It's an interesting thing doing paddle review videos because it's hard to do them without letting my personal opinions kind of get in there and get in the way. So I hope that this video was objective for you. I hope I was able to explain the paddles as they are instead of explaining them in terms of how they are in my hand, right? Because we all experience paddles differently. Now, of course, I'm going to talk about my own personal experiences, right? But I hope that was helpful, guys. Let me know if you have any questions down below. I've been trying these paddles out for quite a while. I've been playing a lot with them. So definitely let me know what you think. I hope that was helpful. Again, use Kinch10, Kinch10 at checkout to get $10 off. and you'll be able to support me at the same time. Really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for joining me as usual. I'll see you next time.